All right, as many guys know, I left my radio show about a year ago to take a job over on Capitol Hill, working directly for the man we're bringing up, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, who's been a real leader in this conversation on diversity, equity, and inclusion in Congress. Congressman Jackson, how are you doing?
Hey, how are you doing? Great to see you.
Great to see you also. And so we're talking about this Juneteenth rollback, President Trump's statement that he made yesterday. And so I wanted to throw it to you because you've been a real leader in Congress on this issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion and what the Trump administration has been doing to kind of roll back many of the advancements we've made. What's your take on President Trump saying that we have too many unpaid holidays on Juneteenth?
Yeah, well, some of the states across the South should get rid of their continued celebration of Confederates Day that they have put in. We should honor the people that have been overlooked and those that have been honorable. It's unfortunate that so many states decided to honor the worst of Americans, those that have perpetuated and tried to maintain slavery. And no, I don't agree that we have too many holidays. We may have too many of the wrong holidays and celebrating some of the wrong people. But no, we should honor and celebrate. It gives us a chance to reflect so we can move forward. And there's healing, there's reconciliation. That's the only way to go forward. You don't want to erase our collective country's memory. And unfortunately, that's been the history of our nation.
To that point, you sit on the House Agricultural Committee, and we've seen the Agriculture Committee talk about slashing as much as $149 million from diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, things that help black farmers. Can you talk a little bit about why you've taken up this area of advocacy where many people don't understand how the Department of Agriculture directly affects them on a daily basis, particularly when it comes to these cuts to SNAP benefits?
Well, everyone eats, so we have something to say about agriculture. It's so important. This is just cruel. And what they're saying is people that are making, on average, $6.10 per day in food assistance, $180 maximum for the month, that they have too much. In a world of inflation, people don't have enough money to eat now. And this is supplemental nutritional assistance. This is not an entire meal. People have more months than they have money. Malnutrition, 41 million people in the United States of America need this program. I believe that the government should expand when people are having hard times, and government should help people when they can't do for themselves, and government ought to be reduced when times are well, and so that government doesn't interfere. Right now, we're seeing that people need more assistance, which tells you that something is fundamentally out of sync. And as he pushes through, not just cuts for food assistance and cuts for health care for the poor, he's also pushing forward with cuts for taxes, meaning the wealthy can retain more of their wealth. The good thing about America is you pay taxes if you make money. If you don't make money, you don't pay taxes. So it should be honorable that you pay taxes. And his spirit is just totally wrong. So as a consequence, he wants to see more people, documented or undocumented, hungry, citizens or non-citizens, hungry. And this is the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. We have enough to make it. And think about it, Brother Portillo, is that he's talking about up to $4 trillion in taxes. And we've talked about this sometime before. And people get millions, billions, and trillions kind of confused. But a million seconds is 11.7 days. A billion seconds is 31 years. A trillion seconds is 31,000 years. He's talking about moving upwards of $4 trillion off the tax rolls at the same time while he's trying to expand our military and our wars abroad.
And on that point, you had an opportunity to talk to this agricultural secretary about this last week. It's interesting because they go through all this. We have to get rid of DEI. You know, what Elon say, DEI is really DIE. It really means did not earn it, etc. And I think the control room might have this video. Let me know if you guys do. You really keyed in with the agricultural secretary on what exactly they meant when they were talking about getting rid of DEI programs, when they talked about getting rid of the quote unquote woke agenda. What did you find out when you questioned the agricultural secretary?
Well, and she had also talked about being colorblind. And I said, do you want people that have visual impairments to work in the Department of Agriculture? So what exactly do you mean by colorblind? This is on your website. I said, are you saying, do you mean to say you're talking about not to have any race consciousness? You don't want to deal with racial equity and racial justice? Well, I don't think we should be targeting and trying to have preference for people that have different physical impairments. That's not fair. So these are veiled attempts and terms to try to diminish the fight for racial justice. And some people, and I hope our community continues to respond with righteous indignation that this is another way of saying black. So yes, we are DEI, and we definitely earned everything that we've gotten. We've been more excellent. Now we've got Pete Hegseth. He's definitely didn't earn it. You've got Naomi over Homeland Security. She's definitely didn't earn it. You've got someone that's not capable of doing the job and raising the standard of character in the White House. He definitely didn't earn it and definitely doesn't deserve it. So we should not back away. Every time they say DEI, they cut something black. They say DEI and they take out the memory of Jackie Robinson. They say DEI, they take out the memory of Medgar Evers and Harriet Tubman. They say DEI, they stop the enforcement of civil rights legislation. They say DEI, which is code word for not hiring any more African American and Latino and Native American students. So we have to put our stake in the ground. There's nothing else for us to negotiate. The Democrats have to step up and step out and be on the right side of history and fight for DEI. If we don't have it, there are no other programs in place. That's why we have to fight.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And as you always say, anybody who didn't have rights in 1776, you are diversity. That means veterans, that means disabled people, that means women. If you weren't on the Mayflower heading over here, you are DEI. I want to touch on a couple more things from this week because, of course, immigration has been in the news. President Trump last week attacked Governor Pritzker. He attacked Chicago by name, talking about they will be the next cities to be militarized, essentially the way that we're seeing in Los Angeles. We were talking earlier about Iran and Iraq. I do want to get your opinion on that. Iran and Israel, I want to get your opinion on that. But right now, there are 2,500 U.S. troops stationed in Iraq. There are 5,000 stationed in Los Angeles to quell free speech and to stop people from being able to protest ICE. Pursuant to that, you led 2 congressional delegations to ICE facilities this week. Can you talk a little bit about why you guys went to the ICE facilities and what happened when you got there?
Well, in Article 1 of the Constitution, and you're brilliant, Lori, you know this, Robert, it's our job to have oversight. We're supposed to show up at federal facilities. We're supposed to know what's going on. This is checks and balances. This is why there was massive protests last week for having a no King's Day, because only a king would have this unchecked unilateral authority and power. That's not how the United States is set up. A billionaire and a housekeeper, the poorest man and the richest man on voting day are equal in the eyes of the law. And we want to make sure that we keep that. What Mr. Trump is saying is that he wants to have the sole arbitrary and capricious power to determine our laws and what's just and right. So you've gotten people that are going missing on the streets of America. They're being abducted, not being arrested, they're being kidnapped. Nobody knows where they've gone. It's a very painful call that we've been receiving in some of our offices where people say, I don't know where my mother is. I don't know where my father is. They literally don't know whether they should call the police department or if ICE has picked up somebody. We can do this in a decent and a normal order. If Mr. Trump was strong, he'd be trying to create laws and having them enacted. No, he doesn't do that. He, in turn, tries to do executive order and circumvent the law. That's why he's got 220 lawsuits, 98 injunctions going against him. It's lawlessness. And a touching scenario I saw this past week, there were 2 young men in the military outside of one of the ICE check-in facilities They were called the Reyes brothers. I didn't know if they were there for the National Guard, or I didn't know what their role was, if there was more policing. No, these two young men, brothers, were in their full military outfit from boots to hat, and they stood at attention outside of this facility. And I approached them and asked them, were they there with the National Guard or what brought them there? They said, we've come here to make sure our mother is okay. We've got young men in the military that are willing to put their lives on the line, and at the same time, they're concerned whether or not their mother is going to be abducted, kidnapped, and mistreated in the United States of America. Went to another detention facility where people are sleeping on the floor, people being picked up and being whisked away to another state, and women not having hygiene products and sleeping on concrete floors, being stripped from there like children. This is indecent. It's immoral. We're saying put an end to that. Let's deal with an immigration reform and a policy, and let's treat all human beings, documented or undocumented, with dignity and with humanity.
And this is why it's so important that we have the type of leadership that's willing to stand up to these things. We saw in recent years, Congress got a little bit quiet. It's good to see people making noise again. We're going to go to the panel. Attorney Manning, do you have a question for Congressman Jackson?
Yes, I'll keep it very short. Congressman, good evening to you. Very quick question for you. This is kind of a hard question, but I'd like you to answer it as candidly as you feel. What is the sentiment of your Republican colleagues on the Agriculture Committee? And I ask because we've seen video on this very show of people in Iowa screaming down Chuck Grassley when they're angry about, rollback to farmers' funds. So I'm wondering if this is kind of a concession in that respect. And I'm interested in if any of your Republican colleagues behind closed doors are talking about changing any of that agricultural policy because they're afraid of getting primaried by being in lockstep with Mr. Trump. What's your position kind of on what you're saying in that regard?
Well, there are a few people that I strongly and vehemently disagree with on the committee that I've seen a level of indecency. And then for the most part, I've seen very decent people. But I tell you, the votes are things that are very troubling. I tell you the reason I think they're voting in this manner that's not consistent with what I perceive to be their values is out of fear. They've been given misinformation. I've asked them, well, can you show me where you're getting these numbers from? And 2 or 3 people told me, look it up on the internet. I'm like, can we just agree on the same numbers? Like, just tell me where you're getting your numbers from. Well, Mr. Trump is twisting arms. When we have a close vote, all of a sudden you can be on the floor and see certain members having to take a call from President Trump or having to take a ride over to the White House. Remember January 20th when he was sworn in? He also signed the executive order to release the people that were insurrectionists from January 6th. On that day, he empowered a militia. So there's quite a few people, as Senator Murkowski has said, are operating in fear and threats and intimidation, the physical threats. We had an emergency call with Leader Jeffries this past week because there are so many death threats on so many elected officials. There are 1 or 2 people in jail today for credible death threats against me. And this is now historically what's happened on the agriculture bill is when people disagree, the Democrats and Republicans, they push it all in the ag bill and it went by unanimously. This is the first time there's this level of friction and fighting over should women and children get food benefits. They want to raise the age of able-bodied people to work that have to take care of their parents, their children, that may be facing age discrimination from 55 to 65. Even under the Clinton administration, under welfare reform, they knew you had to cap it at 54 years of age. Now they want to take it even further to put burdens on people. So, no, there's some decent people, but the votes are very indecent.
Michael, do you have a question?
Yes, Representative Jonathan Jackson. This is Michael Imhotep. When we look at the 145 USDA grants totaling $148 million, they were doing things, these DEI grants, they were doing things such as expanding access to land, capital, and markets for underserved producers, environmental justice through urban forestry, et cetera. Also, education for socially disadvantaged farmers. Can you talk briefly about any examples of how any of these programs that you know of were actually helping African-American farmers, please?
Yeah, well, certainly. So there's one program on urban farming where people are able to source food from their local neighborhoods and sell them into federal and state institutions such as the school. Great program to teach young
Yeah.
people in the city about farming. That was a great program. Forestation, being able to manage the wildlands as the world gets hotter. And the cities get hotter. You also see in the black communities, we don't have enough trees in most of our areas. We have more concrete, a higher carbon footprint that's leading to a lot of other negative impacts. There was a pathway that was being created to teach people in the urban markets about food. Somebody asked me, why did I want to be on the agriculture department? I said, because everybody eats. And if you look at how the ag works in America, every state except for Hawaii, the biggest industry is agriculture. America has a tremendous gift. We can feed the world. And many of these programs that happened in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s excluded African Americans. And so there's much work to be done. That's why we've gone from roughly 15 million acres to less than 1 million acres today. We did not get the access to the tools of crop insurance, of the Federal Home Loan Bank, of many other programs that are tucked in there. I'll tell you one other thing. All municipalities under 50,000 qualify for programs under the Department of Agriculture. Some of those programs that you were talking about with DEI were education programs, on-ramps, that were going to make the Department of Education do outreach to bring African Americans in where they had been excluded, where people in state legislatures and state ag departments simply did not advertise and did not show all the resources. It mirrors the same issues on subprime loans, where people that qualified for prime loans were not offered the prime loans. They were forced into subprime loans, although they had good credit. And so the loans simply weren't being made available. The Department of Agriculture has a lot of resources like that that we should be tapping into.
And Dr. Zachary, I want to give you an opportunity to ask a question also.
Very quick. Representative Jackson, it's great to see you again, my friend, and wonderful for you to join us. I have a very quick question for you that I think is always important to kind of bring this in to kind of wrap things up. So appreciative of you and our 62 members of the Congressional Black Caucus, the conscience of the Congress. What can we do as regular citizens to support the work and the vision that you and Minority Leader Jeffries have cast out as you are fighting against these cuts? You are fighting to save diversity, equity, and inclusion. You're fighting for the rights of our migrants and our brothers and sisters across the country, especially knowing how Trump is planning to target our Democratic strongholds like Chicago. What can we, the people, do to support you and this work?
Well, thank you so much. We have to make sure I see the glass as half full. This is one part the worst of times, but it also, I think it is the best of times because you get to see who people really are. People are showing their colors. Certain corporations stood up for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Others that did not want to be a part of it have quickly abandoned it. I hope people have participated in the No Kings March. I would encourage everybody, don't look back at the civil rights days. You're in the greatest era of the civil rights challenges right now. We first have to make sure our people are getting registered to vote. Mr. Trump did not have a landslide. It was 1.5% margin to his victory. It was less than 800,000 votes within 7 states. There were 5 million people unregistered in just those 7 states, not including the people that were registered that did not go out to vote. On average, it was 35%, 40% voter participation and turnout. In some ways, we lost by the margin of people's despair. So I would say continue to educate, to let people know that they do have the power. This bill that came out of the United States House of Representatives on one big, brutal, ugly bill passed by one vote. African Americans right now aren't being represented in the United States Congress because Sheila Jackson Lee died, and then Mayor Turner, who became Congressman Turner, he died, and Governor Greg Abbott won't set a date for the election to put that congressional seat back on the map. And that's one vote. So every vote does count. And I would tell people, stay encouraged. I would tell people, remember what happened in the state of Georgia. We would not have Senator Raphael Warnock there except for those 11,700 and I think 82 or 85 votes. Every vote did count. Those 11,000 students just in the Clark Atlanta AU Center made the difference on having a United States Senator. So we have the power. Now we have to continue to vote our numbers.
All right. Thank you so much, Congressman Jackson. I really appreciate you joining us tonight. Make sure you go to his website, Jonathan Jackson at house.gov, for more information on what he has going on next week. He'll be introducing the Major Taylor Gold Medal Act. And of course, we want to make sure we talk about that.
Hopefully you learned a lot. This is a post that I did a few years ago dealing with Juneteenth, because after the death, after George Floyd was murdered May 25th, 2020, that next month, Juneteenth was celebrated. And a lot of people learned about Juneteenth. A lot of African Americans learned about it who really didn't know about it, especially up north, because we were dealing with COVID. A lot of people were home, and Juneteenth took on a new meaning. I did this post on Facebook. I said reparations, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, voting rights, etc., are all connected to Juneteenth and the history of what happened after the Civil War. Okay, America needs a massive history lesson. So happy Juneteenth, happy Texas Emancipation Day, Jubilee Day, Freedom Day, and the fight continues. Hopefully you learned a lot from this presentation. You can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App. Visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and just scroll down the page. We have information. We have my bundle pack of my lectures, 15 DVD bundle pack, and it's in digital download format. African History Awakens the African Mind for Mental Depth. But also you can register for my online classes that I teach as well, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. You can download the lesson plan here. I do that on Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But we also have my PayPal and Cash App information here, okay? So this helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, and you can click on the link here. This is our Cash App account, $ the AHN show. It'll say Michael. It'll probably show my picture there. These other ones are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. They've been stealing money from us. I'm still trying to get them shut down. When you click on our link here, this is our QR code for Cash App as well. So you can scan that if you want to support us. We definitely need the support that helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, etc. And then also for PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. All right. Well, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behaviors, not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for the birthday wishes as well. Okay. I guess 54 years went by quickly, I guess. So I don't feel any different today. I've lost, 35 pounds in the last couple of years, so I can fit back in the clothes I haven't been able to fit back into in years. I worked out this morning, so I'm staying in shape. Okay. All right. Talk to y'all later. Peace.